head coach Gary Smith. Coach, your thoughts on today's result?
Yeah, well, for long periods it was a really tight affair. Two teams that matched up identically. It was always going to be a case of one or other of the teams trying to squeeze a moment, an opportunity to break the deadlock, and I'm very pleased to say it was us. I felt as though we'd just about done enough to edge the game, but it doesn't always end up that way. 3 points, of course, is very important to the group, but a clean sheet just as important.
Thank you, Coach. We're going to open the floor for questions. Valer.
Hey, Gary. The last home match, obviously, you got to win as well, but is it a little sweeter to have a win after a frustrating first half and maybe a frustrating second half as well? Does it mean a little bit more coming after tonight than like something like what happened last time you won at home?
Yeah, I think the two games are very different. We should expect that somebody's missing in their group. I thought they came and set up incredibly well. They were tough to break down. There were a lot of questions that were posed to the group to try and break that deadlock, and I think you're absolutely spot on. There was some tension in the air. I think everyone felt as though this was a game that we certainly needed to win. A team that are very much in the sort of mix as we are, going to be competing for hopefully those playoff positions. They've been on a good run, and of course at the weekend that came to a halt. So I thought it was important that we, for all sorts of different reasons, we're going to, take all 3 points here. But sometimes you got to show a little bit more patience and a little bit of understanding, and also give some respect to what they did and how little they offered us. Jacob on the left-hand side took a nasty knock early on in the game, which is why he came out. But I thought the boy Spicer did a wonderful job against him, as good as I've seen anyone. And, that's all credit to him. He neutralised a very important area of our attack. And we just could not get our front two in the game. They, for long periods, found it difficult to get any traction. But in the end, it came from a very different source. The ball in from Annabelle was wonderful, but I've got to say there are a few people on the field that attack the ball as Walker does at that back zonal area. It's a wonderful header back across the goal, and so inviting for somebody to scramble it in. Delighted they did. The second goal was just ease the pressure on everyone.
Gary, obviously you guys have had a lot of experience yourselves playing shorthand. Against, I remember against the Galaxy back in March, you had I think maybe 10 new starters in that group and took a 2-0 lead. I guess I guess does that help you just with your team's experience? Does that help you preparing for a team as shorthanded as Toronto, and just knowing maybe what kind of challenge it might bring?
The biggest difficulty was knowing what and how they would go about their business. John has set up in a very similar shape to us for, I think, pretty much all of his campaign so far, but with a number of bodies from the weekend that were out. It was going to be a conundrum as to who was going to play where and do what, but I don't think so. Really the most important thing was to focus on our game. How are we going to create, stay in a rigid and difficult defensive group, knowing that they still have bodies that could change the game. This for a long time, as I think someone mentioned earlier on here, this game could have gone in either direction on the flip of a coin, and one goal was vital for either team, and it was very pleasing to see it go in at our end.
So Toronto fought. Obviously, they had really a lot of young guys that they called up that really wanted to fight. But that second half, you guys came out firing. It seemed like a little bit more energy. Was there a certain message at the half? What can you say about that? About those last 10-ish minutes?
Well, a couple of changes at the break I thought might make a difference in that midfield area. Tyler Boyd still working his way back into some form, although he's fit and healthy. I wouldn't say that he's firing on all cylinders, but I certainly felt as though he could bring something different through that midfield. And likewise, Alex, who is by nature a midfield player, of course, might give us a bit of a spark somewhere and certainly join the front pairing. Bringing Shaq on, and it's part of his progress back from his injury as well, I thought might give us a little bit of extra legs out wide. It didn't look that way, as you've rightly pointed out, for a good 25-30 minutes of that half. But in the end, maybe some of the good possession, you see it time and time again, with teams that really base their game around possession, that they're asking the other group to work hard, to really dig in, to roll their sleeves up, and then they're looking for those moments late on. Those moments came from a slightly different area or avenue than I might have expected, but in the end it didn't matter where it came from.
Gary, in the good times, and I mean the good times, the times where the team was not suffering so much to conquer a win, especially here in Jody's. In those times, whenever those guys came from the bench and you had something in mind, it seemed to work most times. Now it's becoming harder, but is it tonight perhaps the start of something like that? Because I mean, Void comes in like he's, awesome, and even Bunbury comes in that few minutes. He was like going crazy. He was trying to find a goal no matter what.
Yeah.
Is that coming back, you think?
I think so. I mean, the guys were bitterly disappointed at the weekend. Let's not forget that we've been edged out in a very, very tight game that I thought, as I said on the day, had 0-0 written all over it. So the guys were disappointed. We knew that this game, in the back end of 4 out of 5 at home, was going to be very, very important as we work towards a huge game against Atlanta at the weekend. But I guess maybe the easiest response is, when you look back at a lot of games in this league, there are very, very little to choose between a lot of teams. When those teams, even like tonight, Toronto have put a side out there, have worked tirelessly, very, very well organised and very difficult to break down. It's going to be someone coming into the game with fresher legs, with a different thought process. An individual who's been watching the game. Maybe someone like Tyler, who's a very intelligent guy, looking at those midfield players and thinking, you know what, if I come into this game, or when I do, that might work, and that connection, I'm going to be... Those guys are constantly evaluating what's going on in the game. So Tyler as a creative addition is a huge boost to the group. Shaq is a huge boost to the group, given what we know he's about, in towards that attacking half of the field. But I'd have to say, up until this point, we've not had many options. It's been difficult to look down the line and go, from a creative standpoint, we've had a lot of problems. We've had a lot of injuries. We've had some real issues, players trying to get back to form. There are still some big question marks about one or two of these guys. And don't forget, we've still got 2 mainline players that are not going to play for a long, long time. So I know that all the focus will have been on Toronto tonight and a lot of omissions from the weekend. But if you look at the group that we had out, we were still missing from the start. Randall, Lucas, who's been absolutely fantastic for us, Tyler Boyd and Shaq. All 4 of those players make a difference. 2 of them we won't see, not for a good while. The other 2 have made a big difference. So I would say we're rounding into a group that's starting to show maybe a little bit more fluidity, confidence. It goes without saying, with 3 games in a week, there are 1 or 2 players that are taking some knocks tonight, so we'll see how they recover towards the weekend. But my hope is, of course, that we can maintain the senior group, the core of the group, and we certainly have enough bodies then to try and make a difference off the line. But when we've got even 2 or 3 injuries, it becomes all that much more difficult.
Gary, congrats on the win.
Thank you.
When you look at this team, and you mentioned kind of to Claudio's point about losing guys, bringing them back and forth from injury and so forth. Tonight Hani kind of dropped more into the midfielder role, deeper into that midfielder role. And obviously, what Toronto is showing, obviously, but what your assessment on him playing that deeper role, could that be something to look more into the future with in games in the future?
Yeah, I think you're seeing a guy that is desperately keen to make the game, to influence the game. And, you know, he wasn't getting an awful lot of joy, lot of possession in front of their defensive group that was set up identically, as we've already mentioned, to us. So he's trying to find those gaps. He's desperately trying to find those connections. And I thought maybe on too many occasions he came into those pockets and areas. But what he will have been really excited about and enthused about was the injection of Tyler coming back into that group, an extra attacking midfield player. Sean does a terrific job for us in midfield, but you know, Alex is a different individual. His instincts are to try and get beyond. The shame was Jacob having to come off, but I think all in all, as we're taking those positive steps, result, patient performance, but still a good result and a clean sheet, is one more step in the right direction. It's a step closer to some of those guys that have been out getting back into good form. And of course, it gives everyone, even in a game where the game was won obviously in the last 15 minutes. And at one point, of course, it didn't look like it was going to be. But that's how some games go. Everyone has got to stay focused and concentrate. We've seen it in the past where we've conceded goals and guys get tired. They look tired. They've worked very, very hard. And those individual moments, those little glimpses of goal make a big difference. So I think there's a nice step forward here tonight. Quick turnaround and a very, very tough game, of course, in an early kickoff. But, you know, make no mistake, we'll be desperately trying to finish this week off on a good note.
Yeah, Gary, I feel like, you know, with lately, Hani's had a lot of trouble finding back the net, and I feel like he's been pretty frustrated. You can kind of see that on the pitch. What do you think you need more from him and Sam Surridge to find more success on the front line so that this team in itself can have some more success, especially as you get more healthier along the line?
Well, let's go back. I think Claudio mentioned the Montreal game, or somebody did early on, about the differences in the game. You know, the both of the results are satisfying, of course, because they're 3 points added to the board. But they're very, very different games. You know, Jacob was hugely influential in the Montreal game. He was very bright, very positive. He had a massive impact on the game. And the two guys you're talking about, whilst I would say they're both very, very capable individually of creating moments and getting themselves into good positions, they're only human. They're looking for service. Not just service into the penalty area and goal scoring positions, which in that game Jacob supplied, if I remember rightly, in a very fluid and regular type of situation. Today he didn't. No service from the left. Very little service from the right. Very difficult to break down this group through the middle. Hani drops deeper, tries to get into the game. In the first half, the balance of the team wasn't quite right. I was uncertain as to who they were going to put out and how they were going to play because of the changes. And quite frankly, it gave John the template to be more difficult to break down, and they did just that. He'd be well pleased with them because they gave very little away. But in terms of the front two, yes, I think there's certainly more we can do with Hani and Sam together to connect. But there's also a huge emphasis being placed on the players around, not just service into the box, but into their feet. Good balls into creative areas and pockets that offer them the opportunity to get turned and maybe produce something a little bit more inspirational. And I think we're slowly edging that way. I'm not saying that we've, by any stretch, run down this road and I'm now going, okay, brilliant, we're back where we want to be, because we're not. We're certainly not. But I would like to think that both Hani and Sam are seeing the likes of Tyler and Shaq coming back into the group and thinking to themselves, you know what, the future now looks a little bit more encouraging. I've seen these players around, certainly in Shaq before. It gives us a different dimension, and that's going to be positive for our front two.
Coach, as you alluded a couple of minutes ago, in less than 63 hours, the team is going to be back on the pitch facing Atlanta. What do you do to prepare for it, and what do you expect to see on Saturday?
Well, with little time in the turnaround, I think recovery and assessment of the players is going to be paramount. 3 games in a week for both groups is always tough. The afternoon kickoff offers something a little bit different for both teams as well, of course. But I also think that, in many ways, we've seen it before against Atlanta, form goes out the window a little bit in these rivalry games. It presents something very different for the supporters, for the teams. I'm sure that they'll be desperate to get one over us. And we're, of course, very, very keen not only to do likewise, but to finish our week off on a good note and really try and nudge ourselves into a position that we can, feel reasonably pleased about at this point, knowing that there's still a lot of work to do. So I think the game will come around quickly. The players will certainly look forward to it now after a victory. There's no doubt about that. And let's hope that confidence and momentum carries into Saturday.
With the final question of the day.
Sorry.
Thought I was done.
Sorry. My bad.
We saw tonight that the crowd was kind of out of the game for a little bit, then they got into it again, and then towards the end there was nice scenes of the players arm in arm, kind of with the crowd. I guess when it comes to a rivalry game that's coming up, how important is it for the players to have the fans behind them, and how much does that actually play a part in terms of on pitch?
Valera, I think it's a great question and it's very apt because, I've always said that, it's a reciprocal relationship. The fans want to see us put on a show. It raises their spirits, but there are going to be times, and I think now is one of those times where they're seeing a group in a position, in a situation that they've not seen before. This is all part of our fan base's history, understanding and appreciation of what MLS is all about. There are going to be times where it's not straightforward. There are going to be times where players are out of the team and the guys are struggling to find their way. I completely understand what felt like a very flat atmosphere midweek against a team that were difficult to break down. I get it, I do. But you couldn't be more true with what you're saying about the fan base. Whatever they think of me or the future of the club is irrelevant to what they do to support the group. It is irrelevant. In most cases, people want to show their feelings. That's what fans want. Listen, they can be fantastic and they've been brilliant for me for a long, long time. And at some point, guess what? I won't be here. And some will be happy and some won't. But while we're in this position, the only thing I could urge them to do is get behind the group and to be positive around the group. The weekend couldn't be a better opportunity to do that. The guys need that energy. We've always been at our best when there's been a good atmosphere, when the fans turn up in big numbers and they give us a real lift. There's no two ways about it. I was talking to some of the guys, the coaches, before the game. Certain teams, when they're playing in their own environment, they have a particular home advantage. The easy ones are the teams on plastic and the teams at altitude. And I've experienced that. It can actually play into people's mind in both cases before you get there. Our home advantage has always been this arena and the supporters. At our best, the fans here are overwhelming. The energy just permeates the players, every being on the field. It gives them more energy. There's no two ways about it. I do believe that. So when that's not there, we lose that home advantage. So tonight has been a struggle. Not because of the fans, but it would help certainly at the weekend with a positive and bright and energetic feel around the place. And they can cane me all they want on social media. I don't care because I don't read it. So that's not a problem. But for the players, that would be wonderful. I've always, you know, had a lot of respect for the fans for that reason alone, because they've been brilliant for the group.
Thank you, Coach.
Great question. Thank you.
Shaq Moore will be joining us momentarily. In fact, welcome back, everybody. We are now joined by Shaq Moore, who scored his first MLS goal officially. Previously, he scored in League's Cup. Tell us about the goal.
Yeah, it was a good goal. I think it was a corner in the second play. He crossed it over to Walker, and he headed it across, and I just happened to be there at the right time. So glad I got to score my first MLS goal, and I'm glad it served for a win for the team.
Congratulations. Valerio, go ahead.
Yeah, Shaq, can you walk us through the goal? Because from where I was sitting, it just looked like the ball kind of hit you and went in. I mean, I saw your run, but can you just walk us through that goal from your point of view?
Yeah, I saw the ball go across to Walker, and I was actually surprised at how hard he hit it. I didn't think he was going to head it all the way to me, but I just tried to put myself in a position, and I think Josh was in front of me, and he jumped a little bit, and I guess he was off balance from a push or whatever, and it kind of fell with me, and I don't know what I really hit it with. I think it was like my leg, my chest, my thigh, everything in one. So this shot was getting there, and thankfully, went in.
Shaq, this was the team's first shutout in, I believe, 12 matches. I guess what does it mean for this team to post a clean sheet, kind of get back to something that has really been such a focal point of the team's identity in the past on defense?
Yeah, like you said, it's been our identity, since I've been here and before I got here as well. I think it's something we really wanted to get back to. We knew that if we get a clean sheet, we'll at least get points on the board. So we just want to give ourselves a chance. Obviously, we've given up a lot of goals the last couple of games, and getting a clean sheet and most importantly winning the game was really important.
Go ahead.
Shaq, the fact that you scored your first goal today actually tells people how hard it is. It's not. You might see guys scoring all the time, but it's not because it's easy. It's easy. What can you tell people about how you feel when you actually score, and you've been waiting for a long time to do it, and you've been close many times? And the second part of my question, how important it is for you to have done it before a game, not that this game wasn't important, of course it was, but it's over, before a rivalry game like you have against Atlanta United this coming week?
Yeah, to answer your first question, obviously it's the hardest thing to do in the game is, score goals. Obviously for me personally, I've gotten close a few times. I've gotten, been lucky, but I'm glad this one in, especially having been out for a long time. It's been a long 6 weeks, trying to rehab and get back, and to get back and, score a goal at home, it means a lot. And for your second question, it gives a lot of confidence going into the big game against Atlanta. Obviously you want to close out the week well. We dropped a few points on Saturday against Charlotte, and to bounce back today and get a tough 3 points. We want to finish it on Saturday. So big game, and we're going to rest now and get ready for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Shaq, the past couple of weeks I've been asking players about their goal celebrations. Is your tailbone okay? Because you kind of sat on your butt there going down the sideline there. Can you give us a little description of why and what is the context behind it?
Actually, I have no idea. I did it against Miami when they disallowed my goal, and I just wanted to do it again and kind of, snap that, like, hey, this one counted, So can't really explain that, but it's working. It might be something else that time. So I was just, really happy it served to get us 3 points.
Justin, go for it.
Hey, Shaq, can you talk a little bit about, so you have a short week coming up. Obviously, you played Saturday, played Wednesday, now you can play Saturday again. So how can the team prepare well for this Saturday, especially with being a rivalry game against Atlanta?
I think first thing we need to get some rest. We enjoy this tonight, and then starting tomorrow we'll start to rest and recover and shift our mindset going into Atlanta. I think it's good to enjoy this, like I said, but like you said, we have a quick turnaround on Saturday, and learn from this one. Obviously, it wasn't all good just because we won, and another game that wasn't all bad just because we lost. So we'll look at it, take the goods and the bads, and learn from it, and move on towards Atlanta.
Thank you very much. That will conclude today's media availability. We look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Right.